Marla McGinnis, and I will be your moderator today for today's wildlife media availability. Joining us today are the Honourable Tim Houston, Premier of the Province of Nova Scotia, Nolan Young, MLA for Shelburne, Scott Tingley, Manager of Forest Protection with the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables, Bill Lawlor, Atlantic Director of Government and Strategic Relations with Canadian Red Cross, Bob Robichaud, Warning Preparedness, Meteorology, Environment and Climate Change Canada, and Chief Superintendent Sue Black with the RCMP. Several of our participants have opening remarks. We'll begin first with Premier Tim Houston. Go ahead, Premier.
Thank you, Marla. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm here in Shelburne. I'm with MLA Nolan Young and Minister Rushton, Minister LeBlanc, and Minister Lawlor. We'll tell you the fire here is a very serious situation. Yesterday, I spent the day visiting our command center in Tantallon and warming centers in HRM. And when it was safe, we also had a tour of some of the areas that had been hit pretty hard. Wanted to get a sense of the damage, and I can tell you the damage it's extensive. It's heartbreaking for sure. And speaking, with people at the comfort centers, it's pretty moving situations people are going through for sure. But I would say through it all, people were they were happy they were safe and in a safe place. Today in Shelburne County, I can tell you here at the command center, there's a great deal of concern over this fire. This fire continues to grow, but the people here on the ground, the firefighters, they're working incredibly hard. I also visited a warming center here as well, and seeing the community bound together. It's a good feeling, but this is a absolutely very, very serious situation. So I know that the news from HRM that HRM announced last night wasn't what many people wanted to hear. They announced at least 200 structures damaged or destroyed, and this is incredibly hard information to hear. It's weighing on those of you who have been evacuated. I know it's all you can think about, and there's little that I can say to make things better other than, the teams are working hard to get the information to you, and we'll share that information with you about the where and when as soon as they can, for sure. But I'm incredibly sorry this is happening. We do want to help. So if there's something that you need that you're not getting, that maybe we can help with, please send us an email, and our team is on that premier@novascotia.ca. Our team is there, and we want to fill any possible gaps we can that may exist. So we're also adding mental health supports via the mobile units to some comfort centers, and a crisis support line 24/7. That's 844-751-2133. So we'll do what we can. I announced yesterday that we would help. We would help to try to cover some of the immediate and urgent needs for hotels, food, other incidentals. So information, that program is being pulled together. So the Red Cross is on the line. They're gonna help administer that. So to get your support, go to redcross.ca. We're going to require a bit of information to verify that your household was in an evacuated area. But as soon as we can verify the addresses, funds will be dispersed, and we can do that via e-transfer where it works for people. So anyone who can't be verified or doesn't have email, they can save a check or prepaid card, but it will take a bit longer. So the Red Cross is active. Many volunteer organizations are active, and you can hear more from the Red Cross today, I'm sure. But everyone who has been displaced has, we know that you have the weight of the world on your shoulders right now. I will do whatever I can to reduce any pressure points that I can from a government perspective. And I just want to remind everyone that we have a province-wide burn ban in effect. Don't be burning right now. No burning in Nova Scotia. Conservation officers reported 6 illegal burns last night. This is absolutely ridiculous with what's happening in this province. 3 out of control fires, 8 fires yesterday, 12 on Sunday. Do not burn. 6 illegal burns reported just last night is just mind-boggling. So no burning. For God's sake, stop burning. Stop flicking your cigarette butts out your car window. Just stop it. Our resources are stretched incredibly thin right now fighting existing fires. We have to protect our resources where that's possible. And we're going to take whatever steps we can do to protect our resources. That's why, effective at 4 p.m. today, all travel and activity within Nova Scotia's woods is banned. Travel and activity in our woods is banned. We're going to stop the travel. We have to do what we can to make sure we don't have any new fires popping up. So this includes hiking, camping, fishing, use of off-highway vehicles. It applies to forestry. It applies to mining. It applies to commercial activity on Crown lands, hunting and fishing. So, we can, special permits for commercial activity on Crown lands and others can be obtained, but you got to deal with your local NRR office on that. We're in a very serious situation in this province, and we need to take the steps that we can to protect Nova Scotia. So we'll do that. So on a positive note, I can't tell you how heartwarming it is to hear stories of Nova Scotians stepping up to help one another, Maritimers stepping up to help one another. Newfoundland has been incredible with their airplane water bomber support. New Brunswick has been there for us. PEI is there for us. Ontario sending hoses. So people are stepping up from across the country to help us, but we have to do our part too. That's why the banning in the woods. That's why the banning of the burning, and that's why the limiting access to the woods. So, but seeing people come together, that's the Blue Noser spirit. That's what makes Nova Scotians Nova Scotians. So I'm proud to see that happening. I'm proud to lead this province. We will get through this. It's going to be a long road, but we will definitely get through this. I'll now turn things over to our officials who will provide an update on the status of the fires. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we'll go to Scott Tingley. Scott is the Manager of Forest Protection for the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables. Go ahead, Scott.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon. So in Nova Scotia, to date, we've had 195 fires total, burning approximately 13,000 hectares. We expect that to be increased by end of day today. So we currently have 13 active wildfires across the province. As the Premier mentioned, we had 8 start yesterday. 3 of those fires are out of control. So the other ones are, small. We've been successful in containing them, and we're just working on extinguishing those smaller fires now. But 3 of those fires remain out of control and significant priorities for the province. We'll start in Tantallon today. So the fire is still estimated at 788 hectares, so that has not grown from yesterday. The fire is still classified as out of control. There have been some hot spots heat up through the heat of the day, but that was expected. And there has not been any fire behavior that was not anticipated. So crews have sufficient resources on site to deal with any anticipated fire behavior increases, and they're currently feeling confident in what they have. They're working on reinforcing containment lines. That's what they've been working hard on the last couple of days. And they're doing that with aircraft, Department of Natural Resource staff, the volunteer municipal firefighters, and continue to see good news on that one anyways, in terms of the fire not growing. In Barrington, we've got a different story again, similar to yesterday. Very challenging situation. We've got very, very hot, dry weather again. We've got a large out of control fire. It's an evolving situation. Crews are being challenged by the fire behavior at that one again today. They're working with aircraft again to try and minimize the spread and do structure protection. So we do have communities and homes at risk as we speak, and crews are working very, very hard to prioritize resources and try to minimize those impacts. Also, we've got a lot of heavy equipment in terms of bulldozers and forestry equipment that are helping to reinforce and start to establish containment lines where it's safe to do so on that fire. But again, having a very challenging day with the very dry weather and the large out of control fire. Unfortunately, we had another fire start yesterday in East Pubnico area. It was last reported at 46 hectares, but is expected to grow today. Crews were on it all evening last night, and then on it early this morning with helicopters. We had diverted one of the Newfoundland bombers over to that fire at one point, and we had crews on the ground, but they've been challenged this afternoon with the hot, dry weather, and so we're currently experiencing some challenges with that. But we'll wait to see how the afternoon goes. But that's our third out of control fire in the province now. So the province is working hard to bring in more resources and give our crews on the ground more support, and we're prioritizing those resources that are coming in. The Premier mentioned there we had some hose is on its way from Ontario and Newfoundland. We've reached out and received an order of 1,500 lengths of hose to give us some extra equipment on the ground for the crews. Our Department of Natural Resources crew that was deployed to Northwest Territories starts to return home today, and they will be immediately deployed out to these fires as well. We had a crew arrive from Prince Edward Island today, so we briefed them this morning in Shubenacadie. They've also been deployed out to the fires, along with additional Nova Scotia Department of Natural Resources staff that have all stepped up to help in the fight. We were on a call just recently with our partners down in the Northeast States, and we're hearing encouraging reports that we're hoping to get some additional support from there, but hoping to have an update on that situation as well. And of course, continue to work with the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center to identify available resources. So we're getting lots of help, and we're reaching far and wide, and lots of people are stepping up. That's all I have for an update on the fire situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next, we're going to move to Bill Lawlor. Bill is the Atlantic Director of Government and Strategic Relations with the Canadian Red Cross. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. As Premier Houston gave a brief overview of, certainly we've been in conversation with the province of Nova Scotia since Sunday on a variety of fronts, and where some of the challenging areas are, to provide as much support as possible in cooperation with several organizations who are working together in collaboration with Nova Scotia EMO, amongst many government partners and agencies. Again, just to repeat, the Premier, if individuals within the province of Nova Scotia who are impacted and been asked to evacuate or come up to the with local authorities to suggest that it's really important that they leave the area right away, please go to www.redcross.ca to look for the information. You'll see it on the main page of how you can register with the Canadian Red Cross so that we can proceed with the $500 per eligible household as described. We really encourage people to go to the website first and foremost, above and beyond the call center. Our call center is activated, however, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Atlantic time. And we can be reached at 1-800-863-6582. But again, if you have internet access, you are highly encouraged to go to the website for that registration process. And we will follow up with you with regards to your registration and determine your eligibility for that. We're also working at a number of reception centers throughout the areas of impact, and will continue to do so, working very closely with Nova Scotia EMO and others to provide the much needed support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Next, we'll move to Bob Robichaud. Bob is the Warning Preparedness Meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Marla. I'll just give a brief overview of the weather situation right now. Just before I do that, just in French, juste pour dire que je vais donner une revue de la météo présentement, puisqu'il y a des questions en français, je peux prendre des questions en français. So overall, across the province right now, we're being affected by an area of high pressure, which is giving generally warmer conditions as compared to what we saw yesterday. And some winds out of the west to southwest between 20 and 40 kilometers per hour. So still a little bit of wind there. Air quality issues that we saw this morning, the air has dispersed a little bit, and that's to be expected during the afternoon when the atmosphere gets a little bit more unstable. However, over the overnight hours with clear skies, we tend to run into a situation where there could be increased air quality issues, especially near the fires. The wind should subside a little bit more tonight. Temperatures will still get down below 10 degrees, but then they will increase once again tomorrow. So we're looking at daytime highs tomorrow being higher than what they were today. And then on Thursday, we're looking at some more very warm air that will affect the province and very low relative humidity. So the winds won't be as strong on Thursday than they were the last couple of days, but we're still looking at some significant dry conditions right up possibly into Friday now. We were looking at the potential for some rain on Friday. It looks like that might be delayed somewhat, maybe more Friday night into Saturday. So we're keeping an eye on the rainfall as well. So continued dry for the next few days with the potential for some increase in air quality issues, especially in the overnight and early morning hours.
Thank you for that, Bob. Next, we'll go to Chief Superintendent Sue Black with the RCMP. Go ahead.
Thank you, Marla. Good afternoon. I'm Chief Superintendent Sue Black, the Criminal Operations Officer for the Nova Scotia RCMP. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to provide an update on our response to the wildfires. Je suis la surintendante principale Sue Black, l'officière responsable des enquêtes criminelles de la GRC de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Merci de m'accorder quelques minutes pour faire le point sur notre réponse aux incendies de forêt. My remarks will be delivered in English today. However, these will be available in both official languages on our divisional website, at rcmp-drc.gc.ca. Mes remarques seront prononcées en anglais aujourd'hui, mais elles seront disponibles dans les deux langues officielles sur le site web de notre division à rcmp-grc.gc.ca. So I'll start with Shelburne County. On Saturday evening, our officers became involved in the response to the wildfire in the Barrington Lake area. We began closing portions of Highway 103 to traffic due to the proximity of the fire to the highway and the risk this presented to motorists. Our officers maintained a presence overnight and assisted the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables, the Shelburne County East Emergency Management Office, and the local fire volunteer firefighters wherever we could. Early Sunday morning, Highway 103 was reopened to traffic. However, a few hours later, our officers again had to close a portion of Highway 103. Shortly after 1 p.m., our officers, with assistance from local ground search and rescue volunteers, we began conducting evacuations along the Upper Clyde Road and Highway 103 and Clyde River. By late evening on Sunday, Highway 103 was closed between exit 27 and exit 29, and mandatory evacuations were in effect for a number of communities, with other communities subjected to recommended evacuations as well. Yesterday and today, our officers are continuing to work with our partner agencies, and evacuations and road closures have continued. For a list of all of the road closures in Shelburne County, please consult the Nova Scotia 511 website. To date, unfortunately, over 600 homes and 2,000 people have been evacuated across Shelburne County. We are maintaining a presence of approximately 15 to 20 officers who are conducting proactive patrols in the evacuated communities in an effort to keep your communities safe. Moving on to the fire in the Tantallon area. Just before 4 p.m. on Sunday, our officers began responding to reports of a wildfire originating in the Westwood Hills subdivision in Upper Tantallon. The fire was described as fast-moving, and a number of structures were already engulfed in flames. Our officers began evacuating people as quickly as possible, and we communicated information about the evacuation publicly. And as the fire continued to spread, we began closing roads and continued with evacuation efforts. By late evening on Sunday, the Hammonds Plains Road was closed between Upper Tantallon and Lucasville, and the Lucasville Road was closed to Middle Sackville. Our officers continued evacuating many neighborhoods with assistance from Halifax Search and Rescue volunteers, Halifax Regional Police officers, and Halifax Regional Fire and Emergency employees. Since Sunday, our officers and employees have continued to work with our partner agencies. We're maintaining a presence of approximately 40 officers who are conducting proactive patrols of evacuated communities and manning checkpoints where road closures are in place. With regard to the wildfire in Pubnico, Our officers responded to the area yesterday evening and remained on scene until it was determined that no evacuations or road closures were required. Our officers are maintaining communication with officials at the scene, and should our assistance be required, we'll respond accordingly. Looking forward to the days ahead, our officers and employees will continue to support the ongoing response to the wildfires across the province. For those Nova Scotians who've been evacuated, our thoughts and support are with you. We know that evacuations may cause anxiety or stress, but the evacuated areas remain dangerous, so please do not attempt to return home to get medication or belongings. If you require medication that was left behind, please contact your local health professionals or pharmacies. For those who've had to leave pets behind, RCMP officers in the Tantallon area are escorting residents to their homes when it's safe to do so. This is being done on a case-by-case basis. If you're in the Shelburne area and have a pet in an evacuated area, please contact the Shelburne or Barrington RCMP to discuss options. Our goal is to help while keeping everyone safe. We want to remind the public to avoid all evacuated communities, to allow firefighters and other first responders to do their work safely. Please follow directions from the emergency management offices in each area. And we also ask for the public's patience as first responders continue to fight the fires. Lastly, we want to warn Nova Scotians of scams in relation to wildfire financial relief. If you receive a text message, email, or phone call from someone looking for money, it's likely a scam. Legitimate fundraising is being administered by the Canadian Red Cross. The safety of the public and first responders is our top priority, and we'll continue to work with all partner agencies and stakeholders as the response to these wildfires continues. Thank you.
That concludes all of our updates. Thank you to each of our participants for that. We'll now open the floor to questions from media. We are going to follow the one question, one follow-up format. When I call on your name, please identify who your question is for before you ask your question. We'll start with Brian Flynn with All Nova Scotia. Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, I actually want to ask a question of Nolan Young, if that's okay. Mr. Young, I'm just wondering if you could tell us a bit about what's happening in the communities that you represent. I'm kind of interested if you could tell us a little bit about what's going on in places like Clyde River, that's right in the middle of the fire zone. I'm wondering if you're hearing anything about what the condition is in that evacuated area, and what's happening in a bigger place like Barrington, that I gather is now in the evacuation zone.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I would say to that, in areas like Clyde River, I mean, the safety of the people that are working on the fires first and foremost. There's been people evacuated into the Shelburne area. The one thing I can say is there's a tremendous sense of community and people pulling together to help a neighbor or help a stranger. There's been areas set up in across the affected zone, which can get a hot meal and a bed and stuff to help those people in need.
Brian, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, sure. And it's a follow-up again with Nolan Young. I'm wondering where about 2,000 people have been evacuated, we've been told. Where have those people gone?
So we're seeing people that would be set up at the Sandy Wickens Memorial Center in the rink in Barrington. There's set up here in Shelburne at the community center. And I mean, a lot of people have really stepped up, and there's people staying with friends and with relatives and with neighbors and campers I've seen put out in various parts of the community, and really scattered throughout, but people are being well looked after.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Kayla Hounsell with CBC National. Go ahead, Kayla.
Thank you. My first question is for the Premier. Premier, we have a very real housing crunch in this province. Now we have 151 more people without homes in the Halifax area alone. We just asked the mayor about this, and he basically said he's looking to you and the federal government to step up. So what are you going to do to help these people find new places to live?
Yeah, so look, we do have a housing crisis in the province. There's no question about that. Right now, we got to get through these fires. We'll try to keep people safe and comfortable and looked after while we get through this evacuation period. For sure, that's the number one priority, and that's happening is across the province between the comfort centers, between Nova Scotians stepping up and supporting one another. But look, the housing crisis is real, and it's here before us, and it's something we would try to deal with it in a number of ways. And we'll continue down that path. But right now, we have 3 major fires in this province that are out of control. That's the number one priority right now, getting those fires under control. So those that can get back home can get back home. That's the priority right now. Long term, there's a number of issues facing this province, and housing is one of them. We understand that.
Kayla, do you have a follow-up question?
I do, thank you. I'm not sure if it's best for Bob or Scott, or perhaps you can both weigh in. It's about Fiona, and we've heard Fiona mentioned a couple of times, but I'm wondering if you can explain for people how Fiona, or perhaps the remnants of Fiona, is affecting these fires.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So Fiona obviously knocked down a lot of trees, among a number of impacts that it had. Particularly for these fires, Fiona's impact on blown over trees wasn't as significant in the western end of the province. So basically, what I understand, kind of a line from Halifax to Truro and east were the highest impacted areas in terms of the wind damage. We haven't heard that it's a significant impact on the Tantallon fire. But going forward, in areas that have been impacted by Fiona with lots of down debris, there could be the potential for increased fire intensity and fire risk, and we monitor that very closely. We've been working as a department to map areas that have heavy down debris, and we'll implement or incorporate that into our response strategies, knowing that there could be more intense fires and challenging access into those areas as well on the ground.
Bob, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I was actually going to say exactly what Scott said in terms of the damage. If you look at a line west of Halifax to Truro, the winds with Fiona were a lot less in that area. So I would expect tree damage to be a whole lot less there as well.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll go to the Canadian Press. Keith Doucette. Keith, go ahead with your question.
Hi, it's a question for Scott. I'm just wondering, with each passing day, it seems like your resources are being spread thinner and thinner. How close are we to being beyond our capacity to cope?
Thanks for the question, Keith. These fires are beyond our resource capacity, and that's why we're prioritizing resources, and that's why they remain out of control. And that's why we continue to ask for help and bring in additional resources. This is unfortunately the nature of emergency response, and so we are being challenged. People are working extremely hard. They're putting in long hours. They're away from their own families, trying to help everybody else, and I really commend them for all their efforts, and that's why we're working so hard behind the scenes trying to get them reinforcements to help everybody do their job. So,
Keith, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, it's also for Scott. It's from a colleague working on a different angle. She's wondering if training in Western Canada for wildfires is different than that in Atlantic Canada. And if it is different, is it necessarily better or worse? What is the capacity here as compared to somewhere else to fight these fires?
The training is the same. We meet all the national standards for wildfire training in Canada. Some of the tactics might be different, depending on the areas that you're working on. Mountainous terrain versus non, for example. But we have some of the highest trained and best crews in the country, and we would put them shoulder to shoulder with anybody. And we have the same respect for our partners across the country. So we all work very well together. That's one of the great things of our mutual aid agreements across Canada and through the Northeast states is we do work together regularly, and when we all get together, it does work well.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Alex Cook with Global. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi, my question is for the Premier. With this ban on activity in woods, can you specifically say where exactly it applies, which activities aren't allowed, and how it'll be enforced?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alex. There's one of the helicopters just taken off behind me here, but it's province wide, and it really, we want people out of the woods. That's the spirit of what's happening. We want to limit the burning, no burning. We want to keep people out of the woods. So it's a province-wide ban, and the activities are extensive, but we'll put the full release out that will have full details on the ban.
Alex, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, this one's for Bob Robichaud. What is the impact of climate change on wildfires, and can we expect to see more serious wildfires in the coming years?
Well, specifically for Nova Scotia, when we're talking about the risk of forest fires, having a winter like we just had with very little snow and a really dry spring. We didn't have a whole lot of precipitation in April. We did have a significant rainfall event in early May, but there hasn't been a whole lot since then. And some of the climate projections would point to at least some of the earlier part of the summers to be a bit drier. So there is a potential for an increased risk in fire in the future. But these are all things that are kind of secondary right now. And as the Premier mentioned, that the important part is dealing with the fires that we have right now and keeping people safe.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Aaron Beswick with the Chronicle Herald. Aaron, go ahead. Aaron, are you there? Okay, we will move next to Tim Bousquet with the Halifax Examiner. Go ahead, Tim. Tim, are you there? Okay, let's move on to Darshana Bhaskar-Murty with Global Mail. Go ahead, Darshana.
Hi, this is a question for Sue. And I apologize if somebody had already mentioned this in the remarks earlier, but just looking for an update on the number of structures that were damaged or lost in Shelburne in that fire, if you have an update for today.
Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to be able to comment or provide that information. I would have to defer to our emergency partners for that one.
Is there anybody else that wants to jump in on that question?
Sure. Thanks, Marla. So I guess what I would say is for HRM has released over 200 damaged structures. That's a significant number. Any way you look at it, for sure. The fire here is a big fire. It covers an incredible amount of territory. Much of that territory today will be remote, but still there are cabins and homes and everything else dotted through that structure. So we don't have the count on that, but for sure there is property damage in this fire for sure.
Darshana, do you have a follow-up question?
I guess I'm also just curious about, with the size of that fire, how resources are sort of being divided between kind of the three active fires right now, as you kind of calculate, I guess, the number of structures that are there versus the hectares that are being engulfed in flames. Like how are you managing that?
So we're prioritizing provincially. Obviously, we've got more fires than we have resources to support them. So we prioritize, obviously, based on safety and human life, and then infrastructure, and then our natural resources. So as these fires present risks to those priorities, that's how we're working into the equation what resources go where, and we're trying to support everyone as best we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will next move on to Suzanne Rent with the Halifax Examiner. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Thank you, Marla. This message is for is for Scott Tingley. Can you tell me a bit about how the fire in that area started? I was told from the warden of municipal Barrington this morning said it was started in a remote area, but what was the cause?
The cause of all the fires are under investigation right now. So we don't have any information on detailed specific cause. It is safe to say very likely human cause for all these fires, and therefore much of it probably is preventable. Accidents do happen, and that's why we certainly appreciate the messages from the Premier today and yesterday about the burn ban and how important it is that people just avoid any activities that can start a fire, especially deliberately. So human activity would be the general cause, but we don't have any specific information, and we are doing investigations on all these.
Okay, thank you.
Suzanne, do you have a follow-up question?
I do, yes. Those 6 illegal fires, where were they set yesterday?
I don't have detailed information on the exact locations, but they would have been in various places around the province where they shouldn't have been. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and finally, we'll go to Pat Healy with the Laker. Go ahead, Pat.
Hi, this question for Premier Houston. Is there any update on how many pets have been saved from the wildfires in both Tantallon and in Shelburne?
Thank you, Pat, for the question, and I will tell you that the evacuation, particularly in Tantallon, was so quick. That fire moved so fast, and people had certainly had minutes in some cases to get out of their homes. So that's an incredibly stressful situation for those that are asking somebody to evacuate, and certainly for those that are evacuating. And we know that stress is certainly compounded when there's pets involved. I'm a pet lover and a pet owner myself, so I know the incredible stress. But the SPCA is on the ground. Animal rescue organizations are on the ground, and where possible, RCMP and other first responders were taking people back in to get their pets. But I don't have a number for you, Pat. But I can tell you that this has been a really critical part of the process over the last few days, because we know with the stress that the province is under, that people under the evacuation orders are under, that where we can help mitigate that stress, we will. And reuniting somebody with their pet is a really important thing. So I don't have a number, but I just want to assure you that there's an important effort happening in there.
Pat, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. I'm not sure exactly who the question's for, but here goes the question. Right now, the smell of the fires is very strong, even in Fall River, Wellington. What can you tell residents in these areas regarding air quality and steps they should take?
I can take that question, Pat. Yeah, certainly. Certainly, air quality is an issue. It's an ongoing one. We do have at Environment Climate Change Canada, some special air quality statements out, which will have all kinds of information on what to do in terms of how things are going to evolve over the next few days. Like I mentioned earlier, you're probably going to see some air quality issues getting worse in the overnight and early morning hours over the next few days as we have clear skies at night. That tends to be a very good condition for the smoke to remain close to the ground. So that's an issue that we're watching over the next few days. It should improve a little bit during the afternoon hours, but then get worse again over the overnight and early morning hours. So very simple things like, if possible, staying indoors, keeping windows and doors closed, and limiting the time outdoors, especially in those hours of the day when we know the air quality is going to be poor.
Thank you.
That concludes today's media availability. Thank you to all of our participants for those important updates. Thank you to the reporters that joined us and everyone that joined us online.